Hi, I'm Tim, and this is my review of the Lioness Quartet by Tamora Pierce. So, in terms of physical copies, I've only got this, which is The Song of the Lioness. This is the first two books, which is Alanna the First Adventure and In the Hand of the Goddess. The third book is called The Woman Who Rides Like a Man, and then the fourth book is called Lioness Rampant. These are, I would say, young adult fantasy series, but these were written in the 80s. Um, yeah, let me just read the blurb. This is just for the first two books. Alanna of Trebond dreams of becoming a knight of the realm of Tortal, so she switches places with her twin brother, Tom. Disguised as a boy, Alanna begins her training, but the road to knighthood is not an easy one, and she must learn to master weapons, combat, and magic, as well as her own heart. Alanna enters Prince Jonathan's service. The prince is not only her liege, he is also her best friend, and he knows the secret of her true identity. But when a vicious sorcerer threatens the prince's life, she risks surrendering her dreams. Yeah. So as a concept, this is about a girl who wants to be a knight, so she disguises herself as a boy, and all the trials and tribulations that come with that. That's what the first two books are focused on. Book three, she as a knight goes to a different part of the kingdom, or kind of outside the kingdom, and has an adventure there. And then part four, she goes on another adventure on another part of the kingdom, and then comes back with something, and then there's a big finale. Um, so, uh, I think these are. I think the main strength with this series is Alanna as a character. I think she's very strong-willed. She knows what she wants. She's very good at being a knight, but it's not because she's the main character. It's because she works really hard at it. And these first two books, really highlight that. They highlight how she has to work twice as hard as everyone else, and a great thing about especially these first two books is the tension of her having a secret identity. It'll be interesting because these were written in, I think, 83, 84. If these were written now, what would a trans view on this be? But in this, she is a woman, and at the beginning, she really doesn't like being a girl. And in the end, she embraces her femininity and still becomes a lioness. And this eventually has kind of all the tropes of a young adult fantasy series. It has a love triangle. It has some kind of magic, and it also has a lot of coming of age stuff, relationships. She also has her first period in this book, which is and the changing of goals from childhood to adulthood is covered very well in this. I think I ranked the first book 3 stars, the second book 4 stars, and then the last two books 3 stars each. I think it's fine. I think it's pretty good. There is a once the central tension disappears after the first two books, and it becomes a bit wandering. And I think one thing is that book three and book four look to expand the world much more, and the magic system a bit more. And for me, those are like the weakest parts of the series. So the more focus that they get, I enjoy the book slightly less. But it's still carried by Alanna. She's a great protagonist. Prose wise, the the books take place over a long period of time, years. I think about 6 years from the start of book one to the end of book four. You know, she starts off as like an 11-year-old and ends up as an adult. So there's like big drops in time. So one chapter, and then the next chapter will be like, well, 4 months later this happened, and they end up almost being like vignettes. But that's fine. And there's one thing as well. The bad guy, you know he's a bad guy from the beginning. You just get a feeling about him. And there's a reason, an in-world reason why nobody can pin anything on him, which I think is really clever. I think that's a really nice bit of world building. Another part of the world that doesn't quite feel realised is they have all months of the year. I think that's quite strange. And the main bad guy is called Roger. It's just such an unthreatening name. And you got a prince called John. There's a guy called George. It's not really full fantasy world. And she's called Alanna. That's an interesting name. Overall, I think if this was your first fantasy series, you'd love it. I think this is a really good introduction to fantasy, especially for young women. So yeah, I gave the first book 3 stars. I think the second book's the best one. And this is the first 2 books, and I honestly think if you read just this, The Song of the Lioness, published by Penguin, if you read these 2, this summarizes the story really well, and then books 3 and 4 are kind of additional adventures, but you don't need those just to enjoy this. So yeah, 3 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars, 3 stars. Overall series, 3 stars. A really good read, a good introduction to fantasy. There we go.